Hey, everybody, welcome to Hollywood Live. There is a new show on Crackle. It's called Inside the Black Box. And the host of that show are joining me today, the one and only consummate Emmy-winning actor. Of course, I'm talking about Joe Morton, and the celebrity casting director and coach, Tracey Moore. Welcome. How are you?
Very
Excellent.
well.
Thank you.
Well, this is different inside the black box. I'm loving this. It's an actor's workshop, but it's really different. Plus, you guys are talking about the role of actually the role that race plays in entertainment. So y'all just go in there, okay? Tell me about the show. Let's talk about the show. What's up? What's coming up?
Tracey, go ahead.
I was going to say, you go ahead. Just thank you, Joe. Oftentimes I found myself the only person of color in a room and as a casting director. And so one of the tipping points for me was when a white director asked me to ask a Black actor to be more ghetto or to be more urban, which was very insulting to me. And I never did it when I was in that position. I played dumb, really. And so in talking among ourselves as people of color, it didn't feel like we were moving in the direction of solutions. It felt like we were just, again, having this conversation among ourselves. And so I felt like we needed a platform to get these stories out because these stories are empowering. Even the story of the journey of this show is empowering. And so combining that with my love for acting and actors, giving them a platform to showcase their talent and to be seen by casting directors and directors at large, it seemed like a great idea. And then, of course, to partner with Emmy Award-winning Joe Morton.
I was going to say, and then how do you get Joe involved in something like this? Because this is like an A-list episode every time you go up.
Well, I mean, part of the reason was that Tracey and my daughter are good friends. And so about 6 years ago, Tracey told my daughter about the show and said, was it possible for me to come on and do the sizzle reel for it? So my daughter called and told me what Tracey had told her. And I said, yeah, it sounds great. Let's do it. So I did the sizzle reel. And in doing this sizzle reel, was just really excited about what it felt like to be part of this show, to work with these aspiring actors. I actually even worked with a monologue, a Papa Pope monologue with one of the actresses, not actors. And that was exciting. And so that all went really, really well. And I thought, this is terrific. Some time went by. I called up Tracey to say, how is it going? What's going on with the show? And she said, well, we're looking for a celebrity who has a production company and that would help us. And so I said, well, if it's okay with you, I could be that celebrity. And so here we are. Now, here we are 6 years later.
Yeah. Of course, because speaking of that, to be a really good actor takes time. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. It really does take time. But what are some of the intrinsic characteristics that a person really needs to actually succeed in this business? And that's a question for both of you.
I think we constantly talk about patience and perseverance, that to be any sort of artist, you have to understand that this is not a sprint, this is a marathon, that your career should be about longevity, not necessarily about stardom. Stardom is sort of icing on the cake if that should happen, that it's about the work and not about the dream. I mean, the dream is wonderful and important, but without the work, the dream is just that, just a dream.
Yeah.
And also being honest with yourself too, because the first question I ask in my class is, why did you choose acting, or did acting choose you? And if you are someone who gets annoyed when people take pictures, or if someone were to disturb you doing your dinner, when you do great work, you attract this attention. And so if that doesn't settle well with you, or if you don't have patience, I like when actors say, okay, so when I do my self-tape, I'll hear from the casting director in a couple of days. It doesn't work like that. If you don't hear from us, you have to assume you did not get the job. However, there have been circumstances where the job maybe switched producers or the budget, and then we came back and maybe, reached out. But your work always speaks for itself.
Well, and speaking of that, casting speaks for itself. Casting is on the front page this morning because of the casting of the first Black woman in the lead role in Phantom of the Opera. And I don't want to mess her name up. I know her first name is Emily, and I think it's Kotucha. Um, Phantom of the Opera has been around all my life, and I'm old, so I'm like, okay,
You're
what's
wise.
going to go long? I'm wise. There we go. But how important is it that all of a sudden casting really does become the tool that allows us to see all of these people? And I have to ask you, Tracey, have you been in positions where you had to really cast and you looked at the color of the skin?
Well, the thing about casting is that we're casting these characters that are recreating the human experience. So in some cases, yes, I have to cast a Black female. However, when I'm in a position and a relationship with a director and a producer where they trust me, I like to bring in choices. So roles that are written for white actors, I will bring in Black people, people of color, to give them choices, because that role doesn't necessarily have to be for a white actor. And as an actor, Joe is considered in the casting world as an actor. He is not considered a Black actor, which means that his career is broader, because somebody will, I love when people write specifically for an actor, because there's stuff that they know they're going to get from Joe, but also because he's a phenomenal actor. He can be anyone. And we don't look at Joe as color. We trust him. He's already acclaimed and celebrated in the acting world, not just the Black community.
But it's taken a long time to get there. There was once upon a time I was doing Shakespeare at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, and one of the reviewers, one of the critics, actually said that a conspicuously Black man should not play a conspicuously white role. My response to that was then to write an article in his magazine about Shakespeare and about the fact that if we did things the way he wanted to, there would be no women on the stage. I talked about metaphor. I talked about all kinds of things, and actually started a debate within his own magazine about the role of people of color in Shakespeare. The upshot was there were more people invited to play Shakespeare, and two, that critic never gave me a bad review after that.
Yeah, I mean, is the critic still around? That's the most important. Who's the last man standing on that one?
Right.
And speaking of, okay, so Joe, I had the pleasure of seeing you perform your one-man show, Turn Me Loose, the Dick Gregory story. Let me tell you something. You left me speechless, and anybody who knows me knows that's impossible almost. So my question to you is, how do you keep all that in your head? How do you memorize all that? Or is it really memory? What is
it's not memory per se. It's about emotion. It's about making things emotional. If you try to learn lines by rote, by word, you're just going to be in a lot of trouble. If you understand what the character is going through, if you are putting together that story in the series that it's written, it's a much easier thing. So it's not about, I know people always say, how do you learn all those lines? Well, it's not learning all those lines. It's actually understanding all those emotions.
And that's very much a part of acting, any acting class. And I've never really had a desire to be an actor because I like what I do, and singing was better for me. But all of that being said, we've all gone to those classes, and one of the things you do, Tracey, you work on emotions, but you do sort of work on memory processes. What are some of the things that you guys are talking about inside the black box when you're working with all these young actors and actresses there?
Well, what drives actors is the emotion. And so before we even get to, let's say, a monologue or sides, we have to understand the character's experience. If you don't have the character's experience, you are not going to bring authenticity to the role just guessing or thinking or pretending. Acting is not pretending or imitating. It's totally embodying the truth of this character. So in my class, if you don't have the experience of your character, I have templates to help you to understand that experience, to research, to talk to friends, look at films. There's all type of references out there that can help you understand, because the understanding is key. Once you understand, there's this mechanism that happens that you start to believe. And then once you believe, then the words and all of those things will come, because it's not memorizing for a science test. It's memorizing for the feeling, where you feel here and you connect emotionally and engage with your audience.
It's interesting.
So now-
Tracey often talks about the noise that people sort of get themselves involved in, that you should push all that noise outside. And it always makes me think, when we are kids, even though Tracey said, there is no pretending, but when we are kids, we pretend. But one of the things that kids do that adults have lost or forgotten to do is they are totally involved in the character. How many times have you seen children fight about, well, I shot you. Well, no, you didn't shoot me, but because they are totally involved in the circumstance. And that's what ultimately teaching acting is all about, is getting totally involved in the circumstance, which, as she said, is all about the emotion.
Now, inside the black box, you guys actually bring in a lot of other celebrities to work with the young people. How is that working, and who are some of the people we'll see on the show?
Well, we've had Phylicia Rashad, we've had Raymond Simone, we've had Norm Lewis, by the way, who was the first Black actor to perform the lead in Phantom of the Opera,
Phantom of the Opera. That's
on
right.
Broadway.
That's right.
We've had Delan and Da Vinci, who are in Thoughts of a Colored Man. We've had we've had Marquand Smith, who was the creator of Godfather of Harlem, and the list goes on and on. Sally Richardson Whitfield, and Phylicia Rashad. I mean, it's been wonderful. Between Tracey and I, we have any number of friends and acquaintances that we believe in and who trust us. And so we sort of reached out and said, this is what we're doing. Would you want to be a part of it?
How do you select the audience? Because I would imagine everybody in town wants to be in that audience, when you were doing this.
You know what's interesting, and I thought about this because the actors had no clue to what they were coming to. We just, on Instagram and our relationships, we invited actors to come. So now that the word is out, I don't know how we're going to keep people away for other seasons.
I know, because I'm just so you know, I'm coming over because I want to just sit there and just absorb all of this. What a wonderful concept. Again, going back to race playing a role in the entertainment industry. Now, we all know that it does. We have all of us up here have been affected by this because we've all managed to survive in this business. But when we look at today, and like some days you turn on television and it's like, oh, we have arrived, or you go to the movies and it's like, oh, we have arrived. How true is that?
I'm going to borrow a quote. I'm going to borrow a quote from Phylicia Rashad. She said, someone asked her, did she think she was here? Had she arrived? She said, no, she didn't think she had arrived, that she was approaching. And I think the same thing is true with the industry. Yes, you can turn on the television and there are far more people of color that you're going to see on TV than you've seen in the past. Have we arrived? I don't think so. I think we are approaching. And I say that because the number of Black producers and directors and studio owners, et cetera, those are the places we still need to occupy in order to tell our stories.
And the fact that today, Tanya, the fact that you mentioned the first African-American woman, we still have such a long way to go. Why are we in 2022 talking about the first, when we've had a president of the United States? So you see that there's still more work to be done.
There is a lot of work to be done, and I can't think of any better people to keep it going than you. What has been the reaction? I mean, so you come in and you take this class, and then what happens afterwards? Tracey, do you cast these people, the actors?
Well, I'm glad that you said that. That's another part of the show that we like to offer, is in showcasing this young talent, or the talent in general, people are going to see them. And so recently I've had 2 agents yesterday reach out to one of the actresses who was in our official trailer. And then there is a film that is happening in New York, and it's one of your films. I can't say the title yet, but and my friend is the executive producer. She reached out to me to introduce me to the casting director so that actors on our show can audition for this film. So the connections are happening, and that's something that, excuse me, I always feel like a parent when I see my actors on television or in films and commercials. So it's so gratifying to see that this effort that Joe and I are extending, this opportunity that we are extending to these actors, that something will come out of it, and even if they don't get the call, the fact that the world gets a chance to see their performance, we don't have to just act in the United States. There are other countries that do films as well and incorporate us as actors.
That's terrific. And I think that's one of the things that African Americans have always lacked. It's that funnel, to get you from the one place to the next place. And the whole idea of education and classes, but something that really matters, like getting you from the casting director to the director of the studio head. We've not had that. We just really haven't. That I know.
We haven't, but we are gradually. Tyler Perry and Lee Daniels and is that Israel Ray? I'm sure I'm mispronouncing her name. Israel Ray. So all of these things are beginning to happen. And part of our show was always to showcase young talent. They not only do the improvs and the acting exercises, they also do bumpers in and out of the commercials, so that they get seen any number of different times. I think Alfonso, who was also on our show, I think is now doing something on Broadway. So
yes,
so it is accomplishing the things that we're hoping it will accomplish. And the longer we go on, we're hoping that, we get picked up for any number of different seasons, so that more and more young actors get an opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, Joe, I just finished watching you on Our Kind of People, speaking of Lee Daniels and Martha's Vineyard and all those places we love. So what's up next for you? I have to ask.
Well, hopefully, a second season of both these shows, Inside the Black Box and Our Kind of People, will happen. It's interesting because, as we've been saying about Inside the Black Box, that's an opportunity for aspiring actors to sort of show what they can do, and for veterans to come on and talk about their experiences. I think for Our Kind of People, we never have had in the past a show about generational wealth. Usually it's about generational poverty. And so that's a whole other aspect of our culture that we've never get a chance to talk about. My hope is that both those things will happen. There are other things kind of going on, but we'll see.
Both those are pretty good. And you, of course, can find Inside the Black Box, everybody, on Crackle. And Tracey, I've got to ask you, what are you working on next? Because I know you keep stuff going, girl.
I am hyphenated, but I only need one job. And the job is Inside the Black Box, co-hosting with Emmy Award-winning Joe Morton on Crackle TV.
And is Crackle TV, you can find this where everybody can find. Let us know.
You can go to crackle.com and it will show you how to subscribe, both on your devices as well as the television set.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations to both of you. And I have to thank both of you personally for always representing all of us so well. We appreciate both of you for that.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And good luck with all of this. And yes, whenever the second season happens, I'm coming over to sit in the audience because I just want to see what's going on.
And we'll pull you out of the audience and you'll work.
Okay. I got stories at least, that's for sure.
We all do.
Yeah.
I know you do. Thank you so much, everybody. And check it out, Crackle TV, Inside the Black Box. It's something that that all of us should really tune in, watch, listen, and learn. And everybody have a great day out there. Take care of yourself and somebody else.